Good morning, Tessa.
Hey Diane, how are you doing? Good to see you.
I'm doing good. It's good to see you.
What a year it has been, huh?
Yeah,
Whew.
what a year. And you know, there's a power, all I can say is a power greater than myself was at work when I invited you to give us an update and come on the show again. This is absolutely crazy what I'm seeing.
Man,
And I one of the reasons we voted for you was around this three strikes and how unfairly it had been applied to Black people and
yep,
people of color. And
yep.
I see people that would love to make that the issue instead of the fact it appears to me, because I did some research and I just want to make this kind of opening statement. First, I'd like to have a moment of silence for Hanako Abe, 37, and Elizabeth Platt, 60. Yeah, they were both allegedly killed by Troy McAllister, 45, who ran a red light. My first, so I want to ask you this question, then I want you to tell us what we need to know. How do parole officers not follow through with the parolees? This happens over and over and over again. They don't know what's going on. Someone with this kind of behavior, I could be wrong, but with this kind of behavior, it doesn't appear that he was checking in with his parole officer. He wasn't on the radio. I don't know. Where's the accountability?
Well, Diane, these are great questions. Let me start where you did with the moment of silence and just acknowledge the pain and suffering that these families are experiencing. I had the chance to meet with Mrs. Abe, the mother of one of the victims, on Monday. We met for nearly 90 minutes. It was emotional. It was
Yeah,
difficult to see the pain that she is in, that any mother would be in when they
right.
lost their daughter in such a tragic and senseless way. And we're doing everything we can as an office to support her through this moment, to support the family of Mrs. Platt as well. And we will hold Mr. McAllister accountable if in fact he's convicted of these charges that we filed against him. That's what we do. We do it
Right.
every day. And that's our job, and we're going to do it, and we take it seriously. And to do our job, we have to cooperate with other law enforcement agencies. We have to collaborate with them, and we have to share collective responsibility when things go wrong. So to your question about parole, when someone is released from prison, they are usually released to the supervision of parole. When someone is released from jail, they are often released to the supervision of probation. Probation and parole are two law enforcement agencies that have teams of officers who supervise individual people. People like Mr. McAllister, who may have a criminal history that is of concern and that requires a level of supervision or support. Now, when things go well, that kind of supervision can help someone find housing. It can help someone stay sober. It can help someone find jobs. It can keep people who may have challenges related to substance use or other histories with criminal justice involvement stay on the straight and narrow on a path to succeed. When things go badly, parole and probation have been criticized for years, not just in San Francisco, across the country,
Oh,
for
yeah.
sending people to prison for small technical violations like missing a meeting with their officer or losing their job, maybe for a reason that's not their own fault, losing their housing. And there was a period during the 1990s and early 2000s when a significant percentage of people going back into prison were going in based on minor technical violations. Now, here, Mr. McAllister had a parole officer. And my understanding is that officer was working hard to keep Mr. McAllister on the straight and narrow. Now, in hindsight, obviously it wasn't working. And all of us wish we had done something differently. None of us have a crystal ball. None of us can predict which person is going to do something like the tragic crime that happened on New Year's Eve. That's not something that is, you can see with a crystal ball, Monday morning quarterbacking. Of course, everybody in the criminal justice community in San Francisco wishes we had done something differently. I do. I know my staff do. There's another part of the story, Diane, that I think is often, being overlooked by a lot of mainstream media that I want to make sure your viewers are up to speed on. And that is we all have to work together, as I said, police, probation, parole, my office. And in this case, even without raising this issue of, well, why didn't parole do more, or why didn't my office do more at some stage? I think we can also look to the December 20th arrest. Mr. McAllister was arrested on December 20th. Important to note, these are all nonviolent arrests. All of Mr. McAllister's contacts since he was on parole were nonviolent, did not involve weapons, did not even involve driving under the influence. So we referred those arrests to the parole agent, who was primarily responsible for supervising him. And parole agent did things that were less strict, or if you will, than sending him back to jail for long periods of time. Now, on December 20th, he was arrested. And the San Francisco Police Department and my office never notified parole. Now, traditionally, it's the police responsibility to notify parole. That's what their general order says, 6.12. Historically, they've always been the agency to communicate with parole when someone's arrested. And we're taking a hard look at our own policies now and saying, well, maybe we need to step up and make sure there is better communication. I mean, in this instance, we asked the police sergeant to tell parole that Mr. McAllister had been arrested. My assistant district attorney sent an email on December 20th or 21st maybe, saying, hey, make sure to coordinate with parole here. It never happened. So going forward, I'm working with my staff to say, if you see there's a problem, you should communicate directly with parole. We don't need to just rely on police to do that. We all need to communicate. We all need to take responsibility for communicating. And I am sure that Mr. McAllister's parole officer wishes that he had taken more steps earlier to prevent this. I know, as I said, that I wish that I had, and I'm sure that the sergeant in the San Francisco Police Department who neglected to inform parole that there had even been an arrest wishes they'd done more. And I was just on the phone this morning as well with the chief of Daly City Police. They had a report about Mr. McAllister on December 29th, having a gun, being in a stolen car. And despite their efforts, they were unable to arrest him or to successfully communicate with parole about him. So I think all of us, when there's a tragedy like this, look backwards and say, what could we have done differently? And the thing that's so sad to see, Diane, is the Police Officers Association and some of the really right-wing reactionary folks in San Francisco local politics trying to exploit this tragedy.
Exactly, I see this.
To roll back criminal justice reform and to attack efforts to promote racial justice, and to undermine efforts to end mass incarceration. That is sad. This is a tragedy. We should support the families. We should hold ourselves accountable, Mr. McAllister accountable. We should not exploit this for political opportunism. And that's what we're seeing.
I saw right now there's just a handful, but that's why I'm so glad that we have this opportunity. You were able to carve out some time so that the public can hear from you directly on a community level about what's going on. I hear them, there's about 6,000 people that signed for your recall. Well, that's not going to happen. Every time something goes wrong, whoever the staunch right always want a recall. Well, this is San Francisco. We don't do that here. We elected you. One of the strong points with you is because you believe in equitable justice. To roll back the hands of the momentum or the hands of progress in the criminal justice system, it will just lead to more crime, more violence. So my heart really goes out to the family. As a Black woman, as a 68-year-old Black woman and mother, okay, I'm absolutely appalled. My son is 51. This young man, some people we can't be, wrong is wrong and right is right. We cannot be quiet about this. There are too many amongst us of whatever colors that are not adherent to the law, not following the law. And this is a prime example. What we can't afford, what would not be justice would be for the racism. Racism is reared its ugly head again. And the sad thing is Black people, we're all connected. So when I see this, as I was going to say earlier, as an older Black woman, when I see this, because when a Black person does something wrong, we're all kind of held a little bit accountable, and we're all we pay a certain price in the community. So we mentioned that Troy McAllister, I mean, wrong is wrong. He was caught wrong. So he is not a reason to change the 3 strikes law. I'm concerned about the 3 strike law, because there's people that had a piece of pizza, stole $5, and to take this and try to turn it into something that it isn't. This is a situation, like you said, everyone can do something better. All the party stakeholders can do something better. But this is not the way we change policy.
No, I think that's right, Diane. And one of the things that's important to remember, and this is so important, and you pointed this out just now, but so much of criminal justice policy is made based on one tragic outlier case. Mm-hmm. And it's not how we make good policy. Imagine if every time someone, were to die in a boating accident, we said, you know what, we're just going to ban boats. No more boats.
Right.
No, we can have policies that are informed by data and by science and by, good principles of constitutional law. And we can adjust those policies when we have tragedies like this. And we're doing that. We're going to improve communication. We're going to make sure that we're working directly with parole and not having police in the middle on every case. We're going to make sure that we have better communication with Daly City Police. We're going to make sure that when someone has multiple arrests, we're not simply relying on parole, but that we're stepping up and taking action ourselves as well. But it doesn't mean we throw the entire policy out. And I think that's important to remember. These are policies that are much broader than any one extreme case, no matter how tragic. And I share the anger that many San Franciscans feel about what happened on New Year's Eve. I share the grief. And I also know that San Franciscans have consistently supported criminal justice reform, policies aimed at racial justice and decarceration. They've supported it not just with my election, but they also supported it this past November when there were a wide array of criminal justice reform efforts on the ballot. And we voted overwhelmingly to support those efforts and to defend the ones that had already taken place. San Francisco understands that 3 strikes is racist. San Francisco understands that we can be safer when we don't simply rely on incarceration and long prison terms as a way to cure all of our social problems.
That's very well said, District Attorney Boudin. 3 strikes is certainly racist. And I'm hoping that people pay attention and understand, and don't try to penalize. See, Troy McAllister, okay, bad egg. Every time we have a bad egg, we have to address the bad egg. But there are too many good Black men that are good fathers, good human beings, and we can't afford that they are collateral damage because of what he's done. So saying that, I wanted to find out, how was how have things been since we've seen you last? What would you like to share with us in terms of what has happened? And then I'd like to wrap it up with you sharing with us what you see going forward in 2021.
Well, that sounds great, Diane. Thank you for that. 2020 was a difficult year for everyone. And I know you know that, and all your viewers know that. This was personally, professionally, economically, this was a hard year. And it was my first year in office. And you remember I ran with an ambitious agenda for reform. And I never could have possibly anticipated the challenges that this year would bring. Things like budget cuts, staffing shortages, trying to transition my entire office to working remotely and electronically, court shutdowns. I mean, one of the most basic functions that my office has is to be able to try cases in front of a jury. Well, we haven't done jury trials this year, hardly at all, because we don't want to bring people from the community in and expose everyone to COVID. So the ability to simply run the office and keep it floating with its basic constitutional requirements was something that I never could have anticipated the challenges around. But I think we have a lot to be proud of, even despite those challenges. as you said, we made real progress around decarceration, around racial equity issues, around pretextual traffic stops, around racist status enhancements like 3 strikes. We made real progress in the face of COVID, preventing an outbreak in our jail. You know, one of the things that we saw happen all across the country was jails and prisons were among the top locations for super spreaders of COVID. In fact, over 500,000 people incarcerated in this country tested positive for COVID-19 in 2020. And I'm really proud of the cooperation my agency, the district attorney's office, had with the Department of Public Health and the Sheriff's Department and the Public Defender and other agencies in helping to prevent that from occurring in San Francisco. And, you know, I know we always want crime to go down more, and we're fighting to make crime rates drop. But overall in San Francisco in 2020, crime was down 24.5%. That's a historic drop in crime. And it's not enough, and it's not in every category. And I know a lot of it has to do with COVID and changes in tourism and businesses being closed. But the fact that we were able to prevent an outbreak in the jails, right, to reduce our reliance on incarceration, and to close the seismically unsafe county jail while also seeing crime rates fall, I think is something we as a city have a lot to be proud of for. I also want to talk, Diane, about some of the things that we did for victims, things that are really important at the core of what I think criminal justice resources should be focused on. Supporting healing, supporting restoration of victims to how they were before they were harmed by crime. We did things like partner with Airbnb and with other city agencies and with Veritas Real Estate Investments in San Francisco to create free housing opportunities for victims of domestic violence who needed somewhere to go that was safe during shelter in place. We partnered with Lyft to provide free transportation to victims of sexual assault. And we worked with the medical examiners to significantly improve and expand their protocol for toxicology testing in sexual assault cases, so we have a better chance of being able to preserve evidence and successfully prosecute those cases. Lifting up victims, listening to victims, supporting victims is something that the criminal justice system has for far too long ignored or paid lip service to in favor of retribution, revenge, and punishment. And we have done a wide array of things this year, and we're going to keep doing more in 2021 to put the focus back on uplifting victims. For example, we hired another Chinese language victim service advocate to help us reach out to non-English speaking members of the community. We did dozens of anti-hate crime trainings with community partners. And we also promoted a number of women of color to leadership positions within our own office to make sure that we're actually living the values that we are advocating for. And I could go on. I think, you know, we really had a busy, productive year. I think we have a lot to be proud of. And I know that despite the challenges of 2020, you know, we have a strong foundation to build on in 2021. And I'm really proud of my staff for how hard they worked in the face of these obstacles.
Thank you very much. And I just would like to concur. I'm very proud that COVID-19 didn't spread through the jails. That is absolutely remarkable. I have a nephew that's there. I have people in my family that have graced the county jails, and my nephew that's there is still safe. And so I'm very grateful for that on a personal level, and even more so on a community level. I want to thank you so much. I'm very proud of you. I'm so proud of you. I thank you so much for your equitable justice. And yes, we San Franciscans believe in equitable justice. We're not going to be reactionary. And I want to thank you for taking the time to share with me, and more importantly, the community, what is really going on.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anything you'd like to say?
Well, I know we've got a lot of work cut out for us, and we're going to keep working hard. When you have problems or concerns, please reach out to us directly. Don't believe the lies and the distortion. We are here to work for you, for your community, to keep you safe, and to make the criminal justice system work for everyone, not just the wealthy and well-connected. Please reach out with questions and concerns. We want to hear from you.
Thank you. Thank you, District Attorney Boudin.
Thank you.
Take care. We'll talk to you next time. Have a good day. Bye-bye.